Alright, for this week's Fallout Wasteland Warfare, we have a video for Marcus all ready to go. Only problem is I did lose the audio on this, so I'm having to do a voiceover for the first time, so bear with me while I try and line this all up. So Marcus is a pretty good sculpt, and I decided I wanted to go ahead and try and match his appearance in the actual game. So as a West Coast super mutant, he has a bit more of a brownish tinge to his green, I would say. So we're starting off here mixing up some Plaguebearer flesh along with Aggros dunes. And I got the mix not too good to begin with. The Aggros was actually more powerful than I expected. So I'm gone pretty heavy with the Plaguebearer flesh as opposed to it, so it's at least a 2-to-1, maybe even a 3-to-1 ratio with the Plaguebearer flesh to make sure I still capture that greenish tinge. So we're just mixing up here. I've started using bottle caps from various drinks that I use for mixing palettes. They're easily disposable, so they make a good palette. So we're just applying a bit of a test here to make sure that the color looks good, and it does. Still has the greenish tinge to the brown, so we're going to apply it all over here. I did miss the fact that he doesn't have a cap, just the headphones, so I did have to go back a bit later and fix the missing part of his forehead. And I had enough paint left, I was able to kind of go back there and apply a bit of a second coat. So really darken in and pull those highlights. I think for flesh, contrast paints is still my favorite way to go, simply because it really does save a lot of time and shows off those highlights, especially in Marcus's face here. So next up is we're going to go ahead and look at starting in on his clothes. I apologize for my very poor camera handling. I think I'm going to have to rearrange how I do my setup. But I was just checking there to make sure I didn't miss any spots with the flesh. With contrast paints, it is always important to go back in and double check because I have a habit of pulling away from the top surfaces. So you want to just make sure you've got everything. So moving on to the clothing. Rather than just do his pants in leather, which is what it looks like in the game images, I decided to have him wearing some torn off blue jeans. So for this, I'm taking a 1-to-1 mix of Tallisaar blue, which is a nice, bright, vibrant blue, along with Ultramarines, which is a bit darker, and it gives a pretty good jeans color. It's the color I've used for every jeans I've decided to do. And I figure since he's out west, there's a lot of old blue jeans laying around there with all the mines and stuff. So we're just going to mix that up, and we'll just be applying it to his lower section. So again, we're just going to test it on a bit first. So just trying to find a good hidden spot, so just under there, just to kind of see how it works. And looks good, so we'll continue with the rest. The hardest part is the fringe area. you have to be really careful. So like when I painted the skin, I made sure to really work the paint up into the fringe cracks. And so in this case, I'm trying to bring it down so that you don't have any base coat showing. So that looks good. So just checking it out again, make sure there's no pullaways. And obviously as it dries, it'll darken a little bit, but contrast tends not to lose too much of its color. So we're going to move on now to doing the leather and his various accessories. So for this, we're going with Snakebite leather, which my Snakebite's it gets used a lot, which means it gets opened a lot, so it's fairly dry. So I always have to mix it with a bit of medium to make sure I get the nice flow going on. And Marcus has a lot of straps and belts and his little almost kilt overall waist part, so we're going to cover all of that. Alright, so just checking over all the leather. I like the contrast between the blue jeans and the Snakebite, so I think that looks pretty good. So I'm just going in here, double checking all the spots, making sure what I want is what I want. So for the shoulders, if you look at the in-game files, it has his left shoulder is kind of a dark greenish tinge, so we're going to hit it with some Militarum green here. And again, that'll apply a nice spot of color. Now, for the other side, his right shoulder, we're using Gryph Hound orange, which is a very nice, dark, rich orange, and matches the in-game color pretty well, I think. And we're just going to put it there, and again, this will give a nice spot of color on the model. He's so large, it's good to have these pieces that draw your eye. So now we're going to pick out a couple details on his goggles. We've got the band in there, but for the lenses, I decided to do one as a pure Tallisaar blue, so just as a nice bright blue lens. And then for the other one, we're going to hit it with a little bit of Blood Angel's red real quick. So this is just a couple dots in there. And I do actually have to go back and fix it a couple times as I get too handy with the gray that I do around it to make it more metallic. But this is just my initial offering for the colors in here. So just going in there and picking out the very top with that Blood Angel's red. So we can see that orange is drying nicely, the green looks real good, the blue on his pants is there, so all very nice. So we're going to let all of that dry, and we're going to wind up painting all of the metal plates that remain in gray base coat in order to make the color that I put over it look more metallic. So here you can see I've gone ahead and all of it is now grayed, as it were, which provides a much better base coat for things like black and the Militarum Gray that we're going to apply. And we're going to be applying black on like the piping that's on the left side there, the kind of cables, as well as that last belt. I purposely left the belt undone because it would be a lot of leather, I thought. So by doing one belt black and the other belt in leather, I think it breaks it up nicely. And we're also kind of hitting his boots as well, just so that they have a different color, because we're going to be hitting the metal plates with a gray. We want that different in shade. We're also hitting his headphones, and unfortunately I get a little bit of overcolor, which, as you can see, I actually went back and fixed the top of his head, but now I've kind of messed it up again, so I'll have to fix that later in the video. Next up, we're going to do the rest of the metal pieces all with Basilicanum Gray, which I'm just mixing up right now, and we're just going to apply it all over, so this will take us a bit of time. So as we can see, we've gotten the gray in. You can see it in the arms there. So we're going to need to go back in and fix that forehead now, like I mentioned. So I'm just applying some Wraithbone base layer. Okay, so the gray is all dried now. The forehead has been fixed. Let me get the focus back on. While I'm doing that, the base we're done in our usual Tau light ochre, and honestly you could leave the model as it is now, it's good enough, but we're going to go ahead and add this Vallejo dark rust, and what we're going to do is take a bit of paper towel and just dab it onto all these surfaces, so that will apply a nice bit of rust. But like I said, you could have stopped before we did this, finish off the base and be done. So next we're going to go ahead and apply some Agrax Earthshade over the armor and everything. Not the skin, but everything else. And this is just to kind of bring all of the colors together. We'll also be applying it to the base to pick out all of the cracks in the bottom. But the Agrax Earthshade basically gives it a nice worn look. So matching it with the rust effects looks really nice. Alright, so now we're going to have to let this dry, but we still have all those nice rust effects. And here we go. Now, you may notice that there are some metallic sheens. What I did was I dry brushed some basic metal onto here to kind of give it the more metallic effect. Unfortunately, I lost that piece of video somehow. But now we are ready to go ahead. You can see Everything's nice and worn. I think it came out really nice. And we're going to apply our tufts. This time we're using the tufts with a little bit of extra earth attached to them, because the base is so plain that those will help. So we're just couldn't find my pliers, so I'm using my tweezers, so I'm using a tiny pair of pliers this time, and then just painting on a bit of PVA white glue to them. I think I dropped it there as well, so I had to mess around, and I just decided to go ahead and put the PVA into a cap and just apply it from there. So using my older brush. Old brushes never die, they just get moved on to doing terrain work. And we're just gonna attach it on here. First I'm gonna wind up dropping it, of course, but yeah. And then I use the point of the needle nose pliers to kind of push it down and make sure it's adhered. And we're gonna apply several more of these, and then once they're applied, we'll go ahead and take some Agrax Earthshade and work that into the little rock pieces as well, so it blends in with the base. This base is so large and just cracked earth that applying all of these tufts really helps make it look not quite as boring, honestly. So we're cleaning our brush of the glue, and then we're just going to pop open our Agrax Earthshade and start applying it to these bases. Just to bring that kind of pale sand into color with the rest of it. So I'm going to leave the video to finish this off before I get cut off. And hopefully you all are enjoying this Friday model series along with my Terrain Tuesday series. We'll be doing some more work with the 3D printed bus, showing kind of the cleanup and everything from the print, as well as some post-processing. And we'll look forward to seeing you all later.